Professor, thank you for having me here. And we've been studying conflicts, peace and conflicts for a while. But of course, the way here you look at those issues in South Asia is of a great interest for us. Could you please describe more about this?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Agbota, for having me. And it's indeed my honor to speak to your channel. And I really appreciate the way you are taking this learning process to the entire world. And I've seen only few people doing this. So your work is really, really appreciable. I must commend you for that. So coming back in answering your question about conflicts in South Asia. So South Asia in general is a colonial construct. So you know Asia is divided into 5 sub-regions. For instance, Central Asia, South Asia, West Asia, Southeast Asia and East Asia. So when you look at South Asia has a notoriety. Notoriety means in terms of the conflicts, it is the second most dangerous place next only to West Asia. So that is how the notoriety is or notable for conflicts. So conflicts we can divide into 2 categories. One is the conventional conflict, other is the sub-conventional conflict. When you look at conventional conflict in South Asia, so you take India. South Asia is known for India dominance. Doesn't mean that India is dominating, but it is known for India dominance because 74% of the land, 76% of the population, and around 80% of the military, and 85% of GDP. You can go on. It's a India dominant.
Well, we say that South Asia is 8 countries. This is how we study. But none of them are important. Pakistan to some extent maybe, rather than India. So SARC, you just can study India. This is what we teach our students.
Yeah. So when you look at, I was telling about the conventional conflicts. So conventional conflict in South Asia is mostly India dominant, which means there are 2 categories of conventional conflicts. One is India-Pakistan, which I can say they fought 4 times, 1948 once, 1965 another, that is where the Tashkent agreement came, that is where Central Asia came into our memory, and third was 1971 war, and the 4th one was 1999 Kargil war. So this is how the conventional, but the most important one is what is happening between India and China. This is also a conventional conflict. So both countries fought together in 1962, and after that, either that be India-Pakistan or India-China, they have been having this border skirmishes. Means they have been hitting each other at the borders, but it has not flared up as a big conflict. So this is how the conventional conflict is. But other than this, there is no bigger conventional conflicts in South Asia. But now let's turn to the sub-conventional conflict. This is a major issue as far as sub-conventional conflicts are concerned in this particular region. I would divide sub-conventional conflict in South Asia into 3 categories of conflicts. First is the separatist conflicts, which otherwise called as the secessionist conflicts. Then second, I would call it as an ideological conflicts. And third, economic related conflicts. So what is this first category of separatist or secessionist conflicts? Which means basically by concept, the groups wanted separate state, separate sovereign state for themselves. That is why those groups which are fighting against the countries of the region. You are rightly said there are 8 countries, namely Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Maldives. In all these countries or most of these countries, separatist groups are there. That tells a lot about the character of the state also, which means state is not having a good grip of the people and territory. The state of the state is not in a good condition. That is why these secessionist conflicts. Let's take Afghanistan. There is not much secessionist conflicts, but when Taliban was there, it was doing something about it. And now you have ISIS in Khorasan. IS Khorasan, ISK is there, so that is doing some kind of thing. When you look at Pakistan, Baluch is a major secessionist conflict that the country is facing, majorly.
It's still going on.
Still ongoing, and that goes to pre-independence also.
Still, they cannot get access to their gas sources.
Correct. As a result, China is also facing the heat because Balochistan is known for its port, especially Gwadar port, developed by China. So wherever there are incidents that Baloch Liberation Armed Forces or Baloch Liberation Army, they hit at the Chinese because the Balochis think, or the separatist groups in Balochistan think that China is helping the Pakistan state in enhancing its military capability against Balochis or something.
Did you know, Professor, that in Chabahar, Iranian part of Balochistan, Chabahar is called Pakistani Küçük, the small Pakistan.
Oh, I didn't know that. Now getting back, apart from Pakistan, this particular group, because we are now discussing about the secessionist conflicts. Now let's move to Nepal. Nepal doesn't have a secessionist conflicts. Bhutan also doesn't have. But when you take India, it has numerous secessionist conflicts, which we as Naipaul called as million mutinies, which means India was born with conflicts. Every decade from 1947, we have faced a major kind of issues as far as conflicts and threats are concerned. So when we look from clockwise India, so there is Jammu and Kashmir, which has secessionist conflict, and then when you go up a little bit down, there is Punjab, Khalistan. Recently, what is happening between India and Canada, that is also there.
What is this Punjab?
Oh, Punjab means this Khalistan movement. So Punjab is where the Sikh community stays. Of course, they are minorities, but still this kind of movement has been going on from 1960s, and it became really vigorous in 1980s, and it fell down. And as a result, a lot of diaspora fled to countries like Canada, Australia, UK. From there, they are trying to fund these.
What movements. Do they want exactly?
They want a separate state known as Khalistan. Not Kazakhstan, Khalistan. It sounds similar, Khalistan and Kazakhstan, but Khalistan. So that is where the funding comes, and there is also reports of Pakistan ISI funding the Khalistan movements and Jammu Kashmir movement. And then when you go to the northeast part, Northeast has 8 states, 7 plus 1. For instance, the states are like Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Meghalaya. And then the 8th is the Sikkim. These are called as Northeastern Sisters. So in each of these states, not Sikkim, but other states, we can find as separatist movements, which means basically they feel a sense of a peripheral notion, a sense of alienation from the mainland. So they wanted a separate state.
They also, and how do they call, for instance, like say they won this conflict, what is the state would be?
That is a big question which they don't think about, where the existence will be in a big question. But countries like China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, not now, but Bangladesh at one point was supporting these separatist movements. When Bangladesh was East Pakistan, before 1971, it was supporting the movements in northeastern India. And China was also supporting the northeast separatist movements, especially Nagaland and Manipur. Interestingly, in Manipur, there is one group called as PLA. PLA should be ringing a bell to you because People's Liberation Army. It's also China's army, and the militant group's name is also in Manipur, People's Liberation Army. That is such an influence.
Do they have like those emotional ties with China?
I wouldn't say emotional. For instance, most of these northeastern state people are Mongoloid race. They have that kind of similarity. Suppose if you go to northeast, if Chinese land up in northeast, you wouldn't distinguish between Chinese and some of the northeastern one. But localites can distinguish. But from here, Indian mainland or otherwise, you may not be able to distinguish that much.
You cannot distinguish me from another person. Huh?
Correct. So this is how it is. Anyway, this is northeast. And then when you look south of India, at one point, Tamil Nadu wanted to get away, but it got resolved. Otherwise, this is what it is. So basically, in Indian context, there are three secessionist movements, even ongoing: Khalistan, Punjab, then Jammu and Kashmir, and northeastern states. This is the ongoing one. Of course, there are ups and downs, always goes on. So this is how the dynamics is. If you want, we can always discuss in detail later.